Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this professional learning opportunity. I'm Jessica Roberts, the Director of Business Relationships with NCEA, and I'll be facilitating the webinar today. Just a few housekeeping notes as people are joining. If you have any questions during the presentation, please use the Q&A window. We'll monitor the questions and try and answer them in the allotted time. At the end of the session, I will share a link to an online survey and information on how to receive a certificate of completion for the webinar. Today's webinar, Catholic Schools Breaking Silos for Success, a collaborative approach to student recruitment and retention, is brought to you by Ventured Solutions. Our speakers today are Nettie Reynolds, Senior Content Strategist for Ventured Solutions, and Jennifer Wathen, Director of Advancement for St. Joseph's School in Seattle. Today, we'll go over how to build a seamless family experience from first touchpoint to ongoing community engagement, and you'll gain actionable insights to transform your school, how your school connects with families. Thank you both for joining us today. And before I turn it over to you, I'm going to go ahead and begin in prayer. So in the name of the Father and Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. God, we're grateful for our teachers and friends who help us every day. Bless them with patience and wisdom and help us show them respect and appreciation. Let us all be a light to others and care for all of those within God's kingdom. In his name, Jesus Christ. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. And now I'll go ahead and turn it over to you guys, Nettie and Jennifer.
Hi, I'm really glad to be here. And you guys will hear my Texas accent because I'm based in Austin, Texas. And hopefully Jennifer can offset the brunt of my accent where she's based. And Jennifer, I wanted to introduce you and have you tell our attendees a little bit about your background, because I'm really thrilled that you're on this panel with us.
Well, Nettie, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for including me. I am currently working as the advancement director for St. Joseph School in Seattle, and I've worked in the advancement field for the last 25 years. I moved to St. Joe's about a year and a half ago. We're actually the largest parochial school in Seattle, and I have this wonderful opportunity here, an incredible team. But I apologize. Holy smokes. One thing I didn't think about was a desk phone. I apologize.
That's okay.
But I was a one-man band for 16 years at a smaller parochial school. So I have perspective coming from both. And before that, I worked in marketing and then for the University of Washington and that sort of thing. So anyway, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And part of why Jennifer and her insights are so valuable is that she works at one of I think, did you say one of the largest parochial schools in your region? But the one-man band is also key because her and I have a similarity in being a one-man band. I was the development director for Saints Peter and Paul Catholic School, which was in New Braunfels. And at the time that I was there, I was the one-man band. And so, we are here to help everyone, no matter where you're at in the structure of your school. And we also understand that some of these ideas that we'll present to you are things that, you may not be able to do at this moment, but we also look to have a future focus for you so that if you do get an additional team member that can help you, you'll have plans that can be executed easily. Whether you're the one-man band or whether you're a larger band with more significant instruments and enrollment and retention and recruitment. One of the things that we're going to talk about first is, both in Jennifer and I's experiences, we've had times where there was congruency in messaging, but not that strong collaboration in terms of, let's say the joint recruitment efforts that your school is doing. And so I had the luxury of meeting Jennifer in Seattle last month, and it's very interesting how we shared similar stories of, teams that were working together for the same mission, and they're working together with the same messaging, but they maybe aren't meeting as often as they should. They aren't laying out their specific plans together so that they make sure they're not doubling efforts. And so, Jennifer, could you talk a little bit about that? And then I can share my experience too of what that was like at the school that I served.
Absolutely. And I think, Nettie, this is probably pretty common, especially in a larger school when you have the luxury of having different people filling different roles. If you actually have an advancement director as well as an admissions director and communications director and all of that, sometimes it becomes complicated because everybody's, obviously moving for the same goal, but, viewpoints are different. We, at St. Joe's, we did something, we actually meet once a month as an ACMA group, which is admissions, marketing, communications, and advancement. And in an effort to make sure that our language is consistent, and to do exactly what Nettie was talking about, is making sure that we're being as efficient as possible. And we've also discovered, as you all know, that parents are overloaded with information and have tried to come up with tools where we're driving parents all to the same communication tool. So we're not overloading them with additional email messages during the week. They can just basically expect to find everything that they need within this one communication. There are exceptions to that rule, of course, based on certain projects, but we found, and it's an ongoing discussion. We, as you all know, with parents of different ages in your schools, those parents are receiving or like to receive information in different formats. We have some younger parents that request information to be sent via text message versus
Yeah.
email message. And we have decided that at this time that text messages are only going to be used in an emergency format. We are going to continue to use email as our primary communication tool. We may change that, going forward. We may need to change that going forward, but have decided at this point, this is how we're going to do it.
That sounds great. One thing that I kind of forgot to touch on at the start is, we're talking about shared goals, and we're talking about the shared goals that these roles have in common. So when I'm talking about sharing that goal congruency, it has to do with, increasing your enrollment numbers, improving your student retention rates, especially where there's sometimes a drop off between elementary to junior high and then junior high to high school. We want to enhance our institutional reputation. What that means is, everyone's goal at a school, whether it be the student, the family, your alumni, your school officers, you want more people to come to your school. And part of that comes through that old time word of mouth that is really vital. So, some of these things that we'll be talking about in terms of messaging, that it speaks to that as well, like how to involve your community and how to make sure that your community looks at your institution as one that is widely respected, and that is collaborative. And collaboration is really key in terms of we're not competing with other schools, we're collaborating. Jennifer, the thing that you brought to mind is you all use the, just kind of circling back, it's called the flash, right? And then you make sure that every parent and every community member knows this is the formal news that we're sending out. And so you've gotten your community into the habit of knowing this one place is where I need to go to gather everything. If I just read this, I'll be on track for what's happening. Is that correct?
Nettie, that's exactly right. We say it over and over again. It's a communication that comes out at 6 a.m. every Thursday morning. We call it the flash. The format of the communication is uniform so that you almost know where to expect. If you're looking for a particular kind of information, you know that my head of school, his letter is at the top, and it works its way down. We always tell parents, get in the habit of Thursday, at some point on Thursday, skimming that skim the flash. If it doesn't apply to you, don't read it, but it is where we're driving all that information to, so that exactly, Nettie, as you said, we're just sort of training our parents that that's where they need to find the information.
Yeah. And one of the things that we did when I was the development director is we made sure that even and I know that Catholic schools are diligent about doing this, but we made sure that at the moment of inquiry, even if it's someone that's coming to an open house that is an unplanned person, that is someone that someone else brought along from their community or from their workplace, we have a way of capturing their information, and we have a way that again, that congruency and messaging reaches them, so that they feel like we're on the walk with them in terms of making a decision. So this is especially important in terms of recruitment, because two of the largest things that anyone that is looking at a prospective school are concerned about is, how is the school community going to be welcoming to myself and my children? And then how does it come together to have that mission focus? And then I would say third is, what are those financial aid opportunities that this school offers? So with that collaboration, the answers, and you are already preparing to send out information that speak to those, both in admissions and Jennifer, I think, in advancement too, you really are speaking to that in a powerful way at the onset. Can you talk a little bit about what you all do in terms of just as soon as you can, making that new potential prospect feel a part of a larger community?
We concentrate a lot of efforts into, Nettie, as you suggested, capturing, if we have parents inquiring, joining us at an open house or whatever it is, capturing their information. We know, I can tell you confidently that, Nettie, as you suggested, parents overwhelmingly find us through word of mouth. That's 90% of our parents. We ask purposely, how did you find out about us? And that absolutely is the way people find out about us. And then once they've found out about us, once they've inquired, once they start filling out the admissions application, we purposely make sure that they're invited to things that we have going on campus. When we have summer inquiries, our admissions ends essentially before summer begins, but certain classes may not be full or whatever the case is. Kindergarten is generally very full with a waiting list at that point, but we include them in communication, letting them know all of the fall things that are happening. We have what we call Party on the Hill, which is the way we begin the year, which is for some schools a fall festival, just a fun old fashioned games and rides and a cakewalk and food vendors and that sort of thing. We make sure they're included. We also purposely include the neighborhood to make sure we know our neighbors we're right in the middle of the Capitol Hill neighborhood in Seattle. Homes that circle around the school. So we want to make sure that they feel a part of this community, even if they don't have kids that are going here. And we just very purposely go through that process. And I'm spoiled in that we have an admissions director here who is amazing, and she manages that for us. We have conversations about it, and even things like in October, we have a pumpkin carving event, and in December, we have a gingerbread making event. We include prospective parents in those invitations as well, just so that they get a sense of what we're like. We also do, I'm sorry, Nettie.
No, that's great. That's a great idea, to include them in an October event.
Right. So they see what we look like. One other really fun event, which actually works very well, is we have junior Jaguar playgroups that happen on campus, which are just if you have a child that is interested in kindergarten, it's a way to just come and be on campus, and there are teachers that are involved, and it's just a fun, no pressure. This is what we look like. We have, so we have a Jaguar suit, and someone puts the Jaguar suit on, and the Jaguar shows up, and that kind of thing. But
That's fantastic.
well, it's a nice way to introduce ourselves,
Yeah.
and they seem to be very successful and well attended. So yeah.
One thing that I would touch on in terms of, if we look at the joint recruitment efforts, because that's also what we're talking about here. When you're saying the word of mouth is still one of the most powerful things that we can do, you can even get performance metrics around word of mouth, because you can start measuring how often people come to you through that channel. And I like what you said, Jennifer, that you all do measure that. At St. Peter and Paul, we measured that, and we saw, gaps where, okay, how are we going to build in maybe a student ambassador? I remember at CLS, there was a school, actually this last one, that was talking about things that they did around sporting events in the community. So not just a sign at a sporting event, which is valuable if you're trying to drive some interest for your school and sponsoring community events, but they also might have had like a student ambassador that knew a lot of the, junior high school kids. And so they always had people available, junior high and high school, that could speak to the teens, because we know that word of mouth also works well with all of these teenagers, and they are determined about where they want to go to school. There's certain communities that they want to feel they fit into. You might have a student that's, excellent in drama, and so they really want to go to a school that has a phenomenal drama department where they have opportunities for academic scholarships in drama, or art scholarships in drama. And can you talk a little bit to Jennifer about how you all use, how you all elevate maybe student stories in terms of, because that also ties into the advancement, the enrollment, the admissions, getting a group of stories that each of you can talk about and can easily access when you're talking to a prospective family is also very important.
It is very important. Nettie, I totally agree. In the flash, we also highlight what's happening within certain classes, and we purposely do that so that, for instance, a kindergarten family will think down the line, oh, well, interesting, as a sixth grader, you're able to go to science camp in the fall. What a fun, what a fun opportunity those students will have. And obviously, as a kindergartner, you've got plenty going on as a new kindergarten parent. But we think it's very important that the whole community knows what's happening. Our social media account, as I'm sure all of your accounts, we use that as certainly a marketing tool. We look at it from a couple of different perspectives. We're letting our parents know what's happening. We're trying to communicate what's going on. We're trying to boost enrollment for an event or whatever's happening, but we're also paying attention to the fact that there are prospective families that are looking at that, and keeping that voice in mind. We, Nettie, as you suggested, use our middle school students all the time. They're
Right.
terrific ambassadors. They're great speakers. They're who as a parent doesn't want to see a charming, child who has moved through this process, and
Right.
that we also utilize family ambassadors. When we have new families come in, we match them up with an existing St. Joe's family, and those families are families that you count on all the time, that are great volunteers that show up, but they make an initial connection with that family, welcome them in. They're available for questions. They check back in with them as the fall is going on, because we all know it's a little overwhelming when something's new. And we try and match them up. like most of you, we have obviously a lot of new parents coming in kindergarten, but then for us, we have some new families coming in the 6th grade. Our school is actually next fall, we have a early learning center opening up, so we'll actually have infants through
Oh, that's great.
That is pretty great. We're so excited, actually. A little overwhelming, but really exciting at the same time. But we do have certainly some families coming in the 6th grade who have decided for whatever reason, and certainly, families in other grades, perhaps we're actually finding in the upper grades that we have students transferring in from independent schools, which is interesting, and that's a whole nother tangent, but
Wow.
so we'll match them up with a family that is in the same grade so that those parents can talk about what's going on and answer those.
I think that's really valuable, and that circles into one of the things that is really important, where you're talking about the student ambassadors and the parents coming in, and you have kids coming in from independent schools moving to, the Catholic school. I think it's that makes it more important to have a through line, a story of what your school does, what it does for these significant groups, because often the story you might be telling someone about a high school student is going to be very different than what you're telling someone about the junior high or the elementary school student and families. And so part of what we used to do at Saints Peter and Paul is we would come up with the storyline for each of those specific student communities and family communities. So someone who is bringing their child in kindergarten is probably, more focused on this really community feeling, the low teacher ratio the teacher to student ratio that Catholic schools offer. And you start telling the story to them early on about what your students have achieved over, a 10 or 12-year period of being with your school, but you do it in subtle ways. So we at Saints Peter and Paul, we had, our admissions and our enrollment officers that knew, that would have even just a couple congruent lines about, we've seen this student that started here in kindergarten, they're now at Harvard, or they got, $60,000 in scholarships to go to MIT. And so you start dropping those things early, and it's congruent with every family. So families hear the same messaging, which is, we have an incredible academic program here that follows your student through all the way to 12th grade. And then we build opportunities for them in high school. One of the interesting things that I love about Catholic schools is their focus on collaboration, even outside of their schools. So I think, Jennifer, you had touched on this too, that it's not looking at other schools as competitors. It's looking at how can we join together and elevate these schools. At Ventured Solutions, we have Ravenna hubs where schools come together that are using Ravenna, and they're able to share insights and experiences. And they have the one application form that the families can use for applying to many different schools. And at Saints Peter and Paul, we were very active within that independent and public school community as well, so that it doesn't have to be an us against them idea at any time during a student's life. And I think in particular, in those gaps where they're moving from elementary to middle school and then the middle school to the high school, collaborating on a campaign and thinking of it in terms of what are the key things that we want parents to know as these kids move into junior high. And that circles back to the retention. And Jennifer, I think you said when we were presenting this at CLS that you guys work really well together to try to maintain the retention of the junior high to the high school by involving more of that messaging early on, like what they'll gain by staying through to the high school. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We've been very lucky we've been able to maintain a fairly high retainment rate over the last several years. And I think it's been interesting since COVID happened. I felt like in Seattle, and I'm assuming that this is the same in other cities, we provided a consistent product, if you will. Our kids were in school, stayed in school. We were able to keep things going. It took us maybe 48 hours to kind of adjust. And the public schools, their adjustment took longer. And so parents were struggling to figure out how to make this all work in their lives. And so parents came to us during that period and stayed, which was really interesting. And I think we discovered as a Jesuit school that we absolutely needed to, it wasn't that we weren't proud of our identity, but we needed to embrace our identity, because we were finding people might have found us out of necessity, but they stayed because of what we offered. And
That is great.
it is great. And it's what the world needs, right? And Nettie, you're exactly right. Public education is so important for society to survive in general. And parochial schools and independent schools are filling very important needs for different families. But we are all in this together, for sure. No question about that. But yes, that messaging has become one of our, it's part of our pillars. It's what we're about, and we've just embraced it and gone forward.
I think that's so valuable. And I think, again, when we're talking about developing joint programming, it touches in on that, because you want to, I know we're all excited about Giving Tuesday coming up pretty soon here, and Discover Catholic Schools Week, coming up in January. But I also think that, it's really important to do events outside of, a specificity around the fundraising. Those are valuable, but then also doing workshops and events like financial aid workshops and things that anyone from the community can benefit from some insight. How is financial aid process? What do we need to think about when we're doing that? And I know many Catholic schools that I've talked to, they really put a strong focus on that, sharing, collaboration. If a parent is coming that is not a person of the school, or for instance, I've heard stories where parents left a school because they decided, okay, for junior high and high school, we're going to put you in a public school, and then they want to come back. And so keeping that communication open and making it collaborative, where you're helpful to these families through admissions and enrollment, it doesn't stop there. And so, again, that collaboration amongst those three offices is very important, because you're going to hear things told to you by a family that you may know, but if you don't share it with the admissions or enrollment officer, they're going to be kind of left out of the loop. So having strong communication tools where you can put stuff into the student profile and you can put notes in that everybody can see and review is also advantageous long term, because you might have somebody that comes back in 2 years, but if you're able to see, okay, they left at fourth grade and now they're back for junior high, eighth grade, it keeps the family at the center of your communication efforts, which I think is what we all want on behalf of our schools. Is the family is the center, and they're the ones that we're going on this journey with through this 12-year period of being in school. And Jennifer, can you talk a little bit about, I think I've kind of shared, as a one-man band, what I did in some instances. What is one of your favorite one-man band stories that you did, where you were doing maybe 3 or 4 jobs, but you were the one-man band? I'll call it one-person band.
That's a great question. One of my favorite stories. Well, everybody that's in that position knows, you juggling, you're trying to keep everything going, and you're trying to create a great product on the end. I think my best experiences were when I realized that I needed some help, and that and figured out that I had a parent volunteer that had a skill set,
I love that.
a professional skill set that really was incredibly valuable and helpful. And creating those volunteer teams that helped me in the end really create a much better product, something that worked, and that I had direct input from parents that were receiving that product, but also using their expertise. I would say those were some of my favorite times for sure. You know, those of us that are in this line of work are people you know, we're creative, we're people. We love,
Yeah.
you know, we love this community building, we love relationship building. And I think we have a tendency to think that we can do it all. And we can do a lot of it for sure. But I think, well, as we all know, once you bring those volunteers in, you've got people that are, you know, believers in what you're doing and supporting
Right.
what you're doing, and they're part of your marketing team. You know, they're talking to their friends. It's a win-win, in my opinion.
Yeah. I love that. We did something similar at the school I was at, because we had a great marketing guru as a parent that owned their own marketing agency. And this parent really wanted to work on marketing initiatives for the school. And it was so valuable, even in terms of, I remember a grant that I wrote to get a computer lab through Lowe's at our school. And it was a $10,000 grant, but that parent helped me significantly with languaging what I was writing in the grant proposal to highlight the value that it would be to Lowe's, as well as how it would value our students. And so without that parent's experience and intellect, I don't think that the grant would have been as fruitful as it was. And then that parent knew, hey, here's some ways that we're going to highlight this in our community. What about if once a month we let this computer lab be part of the ESL programs that are going on? And so we opened up that computer lab to other families that were not in our family, you know, in our school, but that also gave us some community visibility, and we were doing good and doing well at the same time, which was one of the things that we really focused around in terms of our mission overall to the community as a whole. And I think that those things too, we're about to take a poll on key performance indicators. I know that oftentimes anecdotal metrics are hard to measure, but I would say that they're just as important as key metrics you might get from emails that you send out. You want to be, you know, reading those metrics on the emails, seeing the open rates, like Jennifer talked about, where they figured out we're going to send out this one Thursday the flash where everybody knows, like, this is the one email we really need you to read and open. And Jennifer, I bet that you guys look at that and study the metrics on the open rates, and you clean your list. Can you talk a little bit about that too, and sharing the list with the whole team so everyone knows where we're at on those?
We absolutely look at those open rates. We actually even look at the times that people open the, you know, when is the most,
Interesting.
you know, we know, as you all know, if you send out something out on Friday afternoon, it's lost. You know, it's we do definitely look at all of that. You know, and we've it's interesting. We found, for instance, during our auction season, the email message that was opened at the highest rate was the message that contained a letter from the chairs, from two.
Wow.
That by far and away had more interest than any of the other email messages. And I thought it was interesting. And we talked about that a lot and wondered, was it because it was a little bit different than what we'd done? It looked a little bit different. Was it because John and Kat Cable, who were our auction chairs, are beloved parents here and very involved, and people were familiar with their name. I think it also had something to do with the fact that it was a very personal letter from them. And I think tugged at the heartstrings a little bit, which, you can't do all the time. Sometimes you just need to get information out. But
Yeah.
we do look at that. I think it's really important to figure out whether you're being effective or not. Because
Yeah.
you have to communicate with parents. We can't do this, right? If we don't. So you have to figure out what's working.
Yeah. In a way, too, Jennifer, what you said is on point because, what you're really talking about is this A/B testing where you guys went in without realizing it. You created an A/B test because you had this email that was different than the other emails that you had previously sent out. And then you identified what are some key things that were different in terms of the content and in terms of who it came from, in terms of the design. And so, that's also things to really pay attention to. And I would encourage everyone when you're collaborating to come up with some different emails and structures of emails during a 12-month period so that you can, don't go completely crazy and have a different email every single email, but just try and see what voice do our email readers want to hear from. Is it formal? Is it informal? Is it from chairs that are beloved community people? Do they really resonate? Is the open rate higher when it comes from our principal? These kind of things are really, really important. And then also looking at those email messages, what I immediately thought of, Jennifer, when you told your story is, if I'm looking at it from a marketing perspective, both advancement, enrollment, and admissions, we're all marketers. Like you said, Jennifer, we're marketing this amazing product. I would look at it like, okay, those folks really resonated with these two people. And I wonder if we can do a short video with them speaking directly. And then we post that on social media. We might have that on our website for a while. These are ways to, take what you know and then expand it. So your messaging is staying congruent, but it's still really, really resonating with the folks that you're sending something out to. And Jennifer, in that example, and it's okay if you didn't do that, but are there things like that that y'all do as far as social media and identifying voices that people want to hear from and resonate more with?
Nettie, that's a great question. We have actually a person on my team is responsible for our social media accounts, and she does a pretty remarkable, well, in my opinion, she does an amazing and remarkable job. In fact, I would encourage you all to follow us if you want to, because she has some great ideas. But that's a great question. Because we try and keep our social media at a very high level and to be as consistent as possible, Lauren is the one that manages that. One idea, and this is an idea that we had in my previous position, and I think it could work well in certain circumstances. The grade school level, it's going to be a little tough, but sometimes you can have a guest social media editor who takes over for a short period of time, and obviously it needs to be managed, and things can't be posted without
Somebody reviewing it.
But I have seen that done, and it's been I think it's a really interesting way to do it. I mean, you have kind of a fun new perspective. You're going to have I've seen it done with a student. And they've talked specifically about something that's going on, for instance, a CYO team that's going through playoffs, and one of the, they're talking about what's happening with their team, and obviously there's a limited amount of time that this would occur. But I think if it's done with some controls and, it could be kind of fun, and maybe that's maybe we have the answer as to why that email message was opened at a higher rate, because John and Kat were sort of our guest editors of that email message. They were the
Right.
voice. So I don't know.
Right. I really like that, with TADS, with our solution TADS, we have a lot of ways that our communications can be branded and sent out. And I like what you all did in terms of that, because you gave them an opportunity to speak, directly to the community. And you really, if you think about it, it was really branded in terms of these are community leaders and we have, value in what they do, and we want to give them an opportunity to speak directly to you. So it's a win for the parents and the people volunteering. It's also a win for the school because you're letting other people speak about the school. One thing that I've noticed that schools are doing more and more in a regional community is they are, like you said, Jennifer, they're following each other's social media, they're liking each other's posts. This needs to be, I think, just universalized, because at the end of the day, again, we're all trying to provide the best education we can for young people. I also would encourage everyone, and I talked a little bit about this at the event, and then we'll move to our poll and kind of circle back to more KPIs. I would encourage everyone on this call to set up a LinkedIn page. More and more schools and parents are on LinkedIn. When I've trained advocacy groups, I always say that LinkedIn is your boardroom, Facebook is your playground. The reason for a LinkedIn page is that it can do many, many things for you that you might not be able to do on kind of a more casual Facebook playground. So when you set up your LinkedIn page and you have parents that are on LinkedIn, because we know that it's becoming a content syndication really platform too, as well as a job and referral platform. What you're doing is you're putting your best face forward as a school. We know that parents spend about 85% of their time researching schools before they even reach out. So this is another avenue that you can use that you might not have thought of previously. The other thing is, by doing that, you're connecting with those advancement officers, enrollment professionals, admissions professionals within your market. And so you'll begin to grow. I know, Jennifer, when you were at the CLS in Seattle, it was remarkable how many folks knew one another from different states and different cities. And I think that one of the unique things in terms of Catholic schools is how much dedication they spend to enriching and enlarging their community overall, including all the people that work on behalf of these schools. And so, that's one tip that I would give all of you is start looking up on LinkedIn and see what the schools in your region are doing. You don't have to have a paid page. It doesn't have to be fancy. It can be at the lowest common branding, whatever it needs to be, but having that presence there and then sharing out your school achievements, both particular and advancement, admissions, enrollment, what kids are doing, how you're getting them higher scholarships. These kind of formalized things you can share out on that page are important. And Jennifer, I think you guys have a LinkedIn page, don't you? Yeah. So could you just touch a little bit on that, and then we'll move to the poll. But can you talk about your page and how you guys utilize it?
Well, Nettie, actually, to be honest with you, it's a great reminder of the fact that we need to include some current content. I was just thinking one of our teachers, actually, Ellen Fleiss, who's the head of our Learning Resource Center, just received a wonderful award on behalf from the Fulcrum Foundation, which is
Wow.
And I thought to myself, just as you were saying that should be up on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
We need to do a better job. We have a LinkedIn profile set up, but I think you're exactly right. I think especially with parents that are in the in their late 20s, early 30s, LinkedIn is a tool that they use professionally. And I totally agree with you. Nettie, one comment I was going to make, and you and I have talked about this a little bit. Traditional marketing is tricky, in our opinion, and we're finding that Facebook is actually not where we're placing ads anymore.
That's interesting. Yeah.
We're really not we're not paying for Facebook ads anymore. We're actually trying to utilize community groups more than anything. We're trying to push our information out through, for instance, there's a group relatively close to where we are called the Malt Lake Moms Group, and we are trying to locate our parents who are members of those groups and having them help us communicate through those vehicles. We just haven't.
That's a great idea. So it's like using, even though that term is overused, I'm going to say it, using influencers within your community, but that are moms groups or that are other community groups. I know, there was an interfaith group that I would send information to that would go out in their newsletter that was all the way up in San Marcos, because it was important that, we use different initiatives to help people know about our school. And so I love what you're saying with identifying that group and sending out stuff to groups that are willing and in the community to highlight something about your school.
Right. It takes a little bit more effort, but if you've got a piece that can be adapted to that kind of communication quickly, we've found that they're pretty effective. I mean, it goes along with what we've been talking about, how important the word of mouth is. And that, in my opinion, is sort of a 1 or 2 steps away from word of mouth.
I love that. Well, let's move to our slide that is going to be a poll. And so what we'll have is a quick poll that you all can take. And it's just about analyzing and KPIs are key performance indicators. That's what we're talking about here. So let's run the poll and then we should get the numbers to come up.
So Nettie, I am so sorry. I missed that you guys needed this poll in there. I did open up the chat though. So if everybody wants to just drop in their number into the chat, we can take a look.
That's great.
My apologies. I missed that there was a poll in here.
No worries. No worries at all. And I can talk a little bit while you're putting your numbers in and just say that my recommendation is that you really both look at your KPIs. So we're seeing 4 monthly, quarterly. One of the things I was going to recommend is monthly. And then the other thing that I look at, and Jennifer, I would ask you this too, when we're talking about seasonally, that's a different analyzing, and that also is a collaborative one. And so it involves these officers that we're talking about. And Jennifer, can you maybe touch on how often you guys do your KPIs, and if it is important to do it seasonally as well? I once a year is not enough. I vote for quarterly, and then I'm also curious about the seasonality of it.
Nettie, I would agree with you. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm the type of person that if we have an event, I need to do the review of the event right after it's happened.
Yeah. Oops, I think Jennifer, is Jennifer's sound out?
Yeah, it looks like Jennifer, your audio might have gone out.
Okay, let's click back. So one of the things that Jennifer was saying was, and this is an important note, is when you're doing it seasonally, you're looking at those enrollment seasons and you're looking at what did you do when you have an event? What's the after action report where you gather together? And again, this comes into play. Jennifer, can you talk now?
I hope so. I think.
Oh, yes.
I think I
Okay.
can.
Well, you can always talk, but can we hear you? I was just touching on that after action report and what you were saying about the events and the seasonality, and then using that to inform what you're going to do going forward.
We've actually gotten in the habit of, we create documents, a logistics document for each event, and we've gotten in the habit of actually just loading the new document on top of the old document so that we can review back, look back and say, we did this 2 years ago, did this work? You know, we tried something different last year, that kind of thing. But we most definitely go through this process seasonally, I would say. And any major event, we review it almost immediately afterwards, just in an attempt to always make things better. I mean, I think this is key. It's, you know, I don't know how we, in my world, at least personally, I don't know how we improve, you know, especially, you know, staff changes. You know, the events often are traditional and occur year after year, but I think it's also important to analyze all of that to decide whether or not you want to continue with an event. Does it continue to address your community in the way that it originally did? Does it need a refresh? Are your parents, you know, is an auction, this is a big question, but is the auction the best way to raise money? Should you have an auction every year? Does it make sense to go to every other year? That kind of thing. I just think it's really, really, it's such an important part of the process.
Yeah, and I will say too, we had a great insight come up in terms of the one-man band, and if you're in a poor, I would say a economically disadvantaged district, how are some of these things done when you maybe don't have the budget to do big events? So, Jennifer, in that situation, because you do have that background of working so long as a one-man band, what are 3 tips you can give someone? Let's say they're just one person, they're starting out, they have next to no budget to advance their enrollment efforts. What are 3 takeaways that you would give them?
The first thing I would try and do is put some sort of advisory committee together of volunteers, of existing parents. Excuse me, perhaps a parent that has had a child graduate from the school, so they have some perspective looking back. I would build that kind of team, talk through the process with them. I would examine what business sponsors you have in the area that perhaps want to partner with the school, that you know, the relationship would work for both of you. It's a community, someone that supports you in the community, and perhaps they can help underwrite what's going on. We have at St. Joe's, we have what we call Jaguar Circle sponsors. We actually combined, this is a whole nother topic, Nettie, to be honest with you, but we actually put sponsorship packages for our sponsors where we provide opportunities for them throughout the year, depending on their level of sponsorship.
That's great.
And I have a brochure that we've developed that I'd be more than happy to share with anybody. So you can, as Nettie said earlier, if we follow each other, I mean, you know, when you do something that somebody else is doing, it's just flattering, right? If somebody's doing something, that's great. But so it, you know, and I think the key is, in my opinion, it's really important in the beginning of the school year to build a community, to kind of hit your parents hard from the very beginning with opportunities to come together. And we do that very purposely, easy for me to say, but at St. Joe's, we start at the end of August. We have Party on the Hill that I mentioned. We have a jogathon just a couple weeks after that, and then we actually roll into our auction, which I think for brand new parents, they're like, what is happening? But at the same time, they've knocked out a bunch of volunteer hours. They've gotten to know other new parents. They've been here on campus. Even if both parents are working, they've been here on campus a couple times. And before they know what's happened, they're part of what's going on.
Right.
And it works really well. And we just basically say to our parents, hang on, stay with us. Know if there may be things that you can't participate in, but if you can, we'd love to have you here.
That's so valuable. And I know we're running short of time, but I want to circle back. First of all, thank you, Jennifer. It's so your insight, because you're in this office every day doing this work, is so needed. And I really deeply appreciate it. And the other thing I would say is, you know, even if you're at, because I was a one-man band at the school that I was at, and it was a small school, one of the things that you can look at is what your overall diocese is doing as well. And there are often people that will partner with you in terms of ideation and in terms of like what Jennifer said about the parents and, getting these ambassadors, finding a parent who wants to volunteer. Sometimes parents don't. We had parents who just, they did not want to volunteer to man the dunking booth at the Halloween event. They wanted to, be a part of something larger that was in their expertise. And so even though that might be scary at the onset, that there's a parent that has this valuable insight, it's actually wonderful because, like I said, they can help you strategize and help you put things into action if you are just that one man band. And then it's a win for them as well because they're more invested in the school. The other thing that we're happy to do is, like Jennifer said, if anyone wants to see that brochure, we can share the contact information, at the end of this so that y'all can reach us. And I would just say to, use your data, and that's a whole nother webinar in itself, but use the data that you're tracking from your communication tools, whether you're using, one of our tools like TADS or Ravenna, or whether you're using a separate solution. It's really important that the solution can give you insights into what you're doing and that it lets you brand your school so that you build that visibility. If anyone wants to connect with us on LinkedIn, we're happy to do that as well. And I would encourage people, go into LinkedIn and look at other school pages around your region. That regional piece is important. And so I think the more that we all collaborate in that end as well, that's really key. And Jennifer, thank you so much. This just flew by, and I didn't see anyone in chat raise their hand to discuss my overwhelming Texas accent, so it must have been okay. And I'm just so grateful and feel so blessed to work on behalf of all the schools that we serve. It is just a daily journey of joy, I have to say, because I know what you all do are putting wonderful, incredible, mission-focused humans out into the world to help elevate the world overall. So Jennifer, I'm grateful for your work, and Jessica on the NCEA side, I'm really grateful to be a part of this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate both of your insights on this. It's always good to have those reminders on what best practices are for all of our members.
Well, it was a pleasure. Thank you, as I joke.
Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for attending NCA's webinar. We're always striving to improve quality of our services for our members based on feedback. With your input to inform future work, if you could complete the survey that I'm dropping in the chat, it will also appear when the webinar window closes. And if you fill that out and provide your email address, you'll receive a certificate of completion. Shouldn't take more than like 3 minutes. It's a pretty quick little survey. Again, Jennifer, Nettie, thank you so much for your time. And then for those that need the contact information, we'll make sure it's included in the follow-up email that you'll get from the webinar. So thank you,
That's
everyone.
Great. And if anybody wants to send me their LinkedIn page and have me champion it, I'm happy to do that. And again, thank you so much for letting us be a part of this.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your week, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.